What if I told you that some of the healthiest foods you're storing in your fridge could actually be increasing your chances of a stroke? Every time you open your fridge, you might be unknowingly exposing yourself to health risks, especially if you're storing these 11 everyday items. Bread. Let's talk about bread first. I know a lot of people think it's a good idea to store bread in the fridge to keep it from going bad, but honestly, that's not doing you any favors. When bread is kept in a cold environment like your fridge, it tends to go stale much faster. The reason for that is the starches in the bread actually crystallize more quickly in cold temperatures, which is what makes it dry out and get that tough, unpleasant texture. And even worse, storing bread in the fridge can lead to mold growth faster than you might think. Now you might be thinking that you don't notice any mold right away. The thing is, mold spores are sneaky. They can start forming before you even see them. When you eat moldy bread, you're not just eating the visible mold, you're potentially consuming the invisible spores that could already be scattered throughout the loaf. These spores might not make everyone sick, but they can definitely trigger allergic reactions in some people. If you've got asthma or respiratory issues, mold spores can aggravate those conditions, making it harder to breathe and affecting your overall lung health. Worse yet, mold exposure over time can lead to inflammation, which isn't just a problem for your lungs, but can also affect your blood vessels. Chronic inflammation can make your blood circulation less efficient, and poor circulation is linked to a higher risk of stroke. So, that innocent loaf of bread you thought you were keeping safe in the fridge might be doing more harm than good. Coffee beans. Next up is coffee. If you've ever heard someone say not to store coffee beans in the fridge, they're absolutely right. Coffee beans are super absorbent, meaning they soak up moisture and odors in the air. When you toss them in the fridge, even if they're in a sealed container, they'll still be exposed to cold air and any strong-smelling foods you have in there. This is why your coffee might start tasting dull or even a little off if you've been storing it in the fridge for a while. But beyond just losing that fresh flavor, there's a bigger issue at play here. Coffee beans contain antioxidants, which are great for your health, especially when it comes to protecting your cardiovascular system. However, when coffee beans absorb too much moisture, it can affect those natural antioxidants. If the antioxidants are compromised, your body might miss out on some of the heart-healthy benefits that coffee offers, including helping with blood flow and reducing inflammation. Over time, if your body isn't getting the benefits of these antioxidants, it could impact your cardiovascular health. And we know that poor cardiovascular health is linked to an increased risk of stroke. So, while your morning coffee might still wake you up, it might not be doing as much for your heart and brain as you'd like if you're storing those beans in the fridge. Tomatoes. Tomatoes are another one that most people think belong in the fridge, but they really don't. When you put tomatoes in cold temperatures, their texture changes. They become mealy and lose that fresh, juicy bite that makes tomatoes so tasty in the first place. Cold air actually disrupts the natural ripening process of tomatoes, leaving them tasteless and bland. But the bigger issue here is what happens to their nutrients. Tomatoes are packed with lycopene, an antioxidant that's been linked to lowering the risk of strokes. When you refrigerate them, you're not just sacrificing taste, you're also compromising some of their nutritional benefits. Lycopene is one of those compounds that thrive best in warmer conditions. So if you're keeping your tomatoes cold, you're reducing their ability to help protect your body against stroke and other cardiovascular issues. And let's be real, if your tomatoes are tasteless and watery, you're less likely to want to eat them. Eating less fresh produce means you're missing out on those essential nutrients that keep your heart and brain healthy. Bananas. Now, bananas are a big no when it comes to fridge storage. You've probably noticed that bananas turn black way faster when they're refrigerated. That's because cold air messes with their cell structure, causing them to ripen unevenly and spoil more quickly. Not only do blackened bananas look unappetizing, but they also lose some of their key nutrients when they're stored in the cold. Bananas are an amazing source of potassium, which is crucial for maintaining healthy blood pressure. And as you know, high blood pressure is one of the main risk factors for stroke. So, when your bananas start to spoil faster in the fridge, you're losing that easy source of potassium that can help keep your blood pressure in check. Plus, if your bananas spoil too quickly, you're more likely to throw them away, missing out on their health benefits entirely. Avocados. Avocados are one of those foods that you really want to treat with care, especially if you're hoping to enjoy their full benefits. If you've ever stored an avocado in the fridge, you've probably noticed that it doesn't ripen the way it should. Cold temperatures interfere with the natural ripening process, leading to an uneven texture. When you take it out of the fridge, parts of it might still be hard while other parts could be overripe and mushy. It's just not a pleasant experience, and it definitely doesn't taste as good. But beyond the flavor and texture issues, there's a bigger concern when it comes to how you store avocados. Avocados are packed with heart-healthy fats, particularly monounsaturated fats, which are essential for supporting brain health and reducing your risk of stroke. These fats help lower bad cholesterol and promote good cholesterol, which is key for keeping your arteries clear and blood flowing properly. When you store avocados in the fridge, you're basically delaying the ripening process, and you might not get to enjoy them at their peak nutritional value. Eating an avocado that hasn't ripened properly means you're missing out on some of the key nutrients that make this fruit so beneficial for your heart and brain. If you're trying to maintain a diet that supports heart health and reduces stroke risk, it's important to get those healthy fats in their best form. Storing avocados improperly can limit your ability to fully benefit from their protective properties, so it's best to leave them out on the counter to ripen naturally and enjoy them when they're at their best. Garlic. Garlic is another food that really doesn't belong in the fridge. A lot of people think it's okay to keep it there to make it last longer, but what actually happens is that garlic can start to sprout or even grow mold when it's exposed to the cold and moisture in the fridge. When garlic starts sprouting, it loses some of its potency, and moldy garlic is, of course, something you want to avoid altogether. The real magic of garlic comes from a compound called allicin, which is released when garlic is crushed or chopped. Allicin has powerful anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties, both of which are great for cardiovascular health. It helps reduce inflammation in the body, which is key to keeping your blood vessels healthy and lowering your risk of stroke. But if your garlic is sprouting or growing mold, it's not going to give you the same heart health benefits. Spoiled garlic doesn't contain as much allicin, which means you're not getting the full cardiovascular support you could be getting from fresh, properly stored garlic. To really get the most out of garlic's stroke preventive properties, it's best to store it in a cool, dry place like your pantry, where it won't be exposed to the moisture that can cause it to go bad. Honey. Honey is another item that people mistakenly think should go in the fridge, but that's not the case. When you store honey in the fridge, it crystallizes, becoming thick and grainy, which makes it hard to use. Not only does it become difficult to spread or mix, but the cold storage can also affect its natural properties. Raw honey is packed with antioxidants, which help reduce oxidative stress in the body. Oxidative stress is one of the factors that can lead to chronic inflammation, a condition that contributes to a range of health issues, including stroke. By keeping your honey in the fridge, you're not only making it harder to use, but you might also be reducing its antioxidant effectiveness. Honey is one of those natural foods that can last for a long time without refrigeration, so there's really no need to put it in the fridge. If you want to make sure you're getting all the health benefits from honey, especially its role in reducing oxidative stress, keep it at room temperature. This way, it stays easy to use and retains all of its health-promoting properties. Potatoes. Potatoes are another food that should never be stored in the fridge. When potatoes are exposed to cold temperatures, the starch inside them starts to convert into sugar much more quickly. This can lead to potatoes tasting overly sweet and having a strange texture when cooked. They might not brown the way you expect, or they could come out with an odd consistency that doesn't really work in most recipes. The real issue with refrigerating potatoes, though, goes beyond the taste and texture. The increased sugar content from cold storage can actually pose a problem for your blood sugar levels. For people with diabetes or high blood pressure, two major risk factors for stroke, this can be particularly dangerous. Spikes in blood sugar can cause more strain on your cardiovascular system, increasing the risk of stroke over time. Keeping potatoes in the fridge might seem like a way to extend their shelf life, but it's actually making them less healthy for you. Instead, potatoes should be stored in a cool, dark place, like a pantry or a cellar, where they won't be exposed to cold temperatures that speed up the conversion of starch to sugar. This way you can enjoy their full nutritional benefits without the added risks. Onions. Let's start with onions. A lot of people instinctively put their onions in the fridge, thinking it will keep them fresh for longer. However, that's actually not the best place for them. When onions are stored in the fridge, they tend to get mushy. The cold, humid environment of a refrigerator causes them to absorb moisture, which breaks down their structure and leads to a less than ideal texture when you go to use them. Worse, that excess moisture can cause mold to grow, which is obviously something you want to avoid in your food. Onions are packed with antioxidants and have anti-inflammatory properties, which are both great for your health. These compounds help reduce inflammation in the body and support your cardiovascular system. Inflammation is a significant factor in many health conditions, including strokes, so anything that helps keep it in check is a plus. However, when you store onions in the fridge and they start to deteriorate, you're also losing some of those health benefits. The nutrients that make onions so good for you can break down, reducing their potency. This means that if your onions are getting mushy or moldy, they aren't just less appetizing, they're also not as beneficial for your health. By keeping your onions out of the fridge in a cool, dry place instead, you can preserve their texture and their health-boosting properties, ensuring you get the most out of this nutrient-rich vegetable. Olive oil. Now let's talk about olive oil. Olive oil is one of those staples that's pretty much essential if you're trying to follow a heart-healthy diet. It's a key component of the Mediterranean diet, which is known for its ability to lower the risk of cardiovascular diseases, including strokes. The reason olive oil is so beneficial is because it's rich in monounsaturated fats and antioxidants, both of which support brain and heart health, by reducing inflammation and improving cholesterol levels. But here's the thing, olive oil doesn't belong in the fridge. When you store olive oil in cold temperatures, it can solidify, becoming thick and cloudy. Not only does this make it harder to use, but it also alters the flavor, making it less enjoyable to cook with. More importantly, when olive oil solidifies, it can lose some of its protective properties, like its ability to reduce inflammation. You want to get the full benefit of those healthy fats and antioxidants, and that's not going to happen if your olive oil is sitting in the fridge. Eggs. Lastly, we have eggs. Eggs are one of those foods that spark a lot of debate when it comes to storage. In some countries, it's common to refrigerate eggs, while in others, people keep them at room temperature. The key difference lies in how the eggs are processed. In the US and a few other places, eggs are washed before they hit the shelves, which removes a natural protective coating on the shell. This makes them more vulnerable to bacteria, so refrigeration is recommended to keep them safe. However, in many other countries, eggs aren't washed, and that protective layer stays intact, so they don't need to be refrigerated. But here's where things get tricky. Even when refrigeration is recommended, it can still cause issues. Storing eggs in the fridge can lead to condensation forming on the shell when they're taken out, and this moisture can encourage bacterial growth, particularly salmonella. If bacteria get inside the egg, they can cause foodborne illnesses. These illnesses trigger inflammation in the body as your immune system tries to fight off the infection. Chronic inflammation is linked to a higher risk of stroke. So while it might seem like keeping eggs in the fridge is the safest bet, it can actually have some unintended consequences if the conditions aren't just right. The bottom line with eggs is that you need to consider how they're handled in your region. If your eggs don't require refrigeration, it's probably best to store them at room temperature to avoid the risk of condensation and bacterial growth. If you do need to refrigerate them, make sure you handle them carefully to minimize any potential issues with moisture and bacteria. We've uncovered 11 surprising items that may be lurking in your fridge, all of which could be affecting your health in ways you didn't realize. By making small changes to how you store your food, you can protect both your fridge space and your overall health. So, check your fridge and see which of these hidden dangers might be putting your health at risk.